Hello everyone, Daniel here. I want to share with you the new features of 1.3 version of my GM Enhancement extension for Fantasy Grounds Unity. I added a few bug fixes and minor improvements and a major new feature. So let's go quickly through them. The first minor fix was around encounters. And now you can build encounters with traps, and it's gonna, if you add simple hazards, it will calculate correctly the XP amount. So here's an example where I added 10 custom hidden elite pits. Those are level 1 traps, right? So as you can see, if I change the number of traps, the XP only changes a little bit because those are level 1 traps versus a level 4 party, right? So the contributions of the total XP for those traps is pretty minimal. Here's an example where we added also the trap. We can also just try to create a new encounter. Like we have 4 skeletal horses. That's a moderate encounter with for a party level of level 4 of 4 players. Lots of 4s there. Let's try to add Fireball Rune. This encounter, so it only increases by 12 the XP, right? So it should make it a little bit easier for GMs out there adding simple traps to their encounters. If you already have encounters built, this is not retroactively recalculate because I use a hidden field to store the fact that this is a simple hazard. You're gonna have to, for example, if this is like an incorrect encounter, you would have to edit your encounter, remove the trap, and add it again. This will make sure that the database is updated correctly, and then the XP will calculate properly. There was another minor fix that's on the NPC generator. That's super minor. It's just that if you create one, now I'm gonna pre-populate the damage type with type between parentheses here, just so you just as a reminder for you to add the damage type, right? So for example, here on the unlimited usage area damage, if I change this to fire damage, right, this will properly roll fire damage. Same thing for the basic damage. So not much, more of a reminder. The big feature of this version, and that's why I'm increasing the price to 500 coins. If you already own this extension, you don't have to pay anything extra. But if you're considering getting this extension now, it's gonna cost you $5. But now you also have the opportunity of creating magical weapons. This is still, like, I'd say it's still beta. The underlying system for runes is not great yet. So there's a lot of manual parsing and that they can break. For example, if you add a custom rune and you added the name of that rune, it might not work. But at least for all standard runes, it should help GMs there when they're building their magical weapons and armors for their players. So if you come to items, now there's this Rune Forge button here at the end. People using the 5e rule set should be familiar with this interface. Let me clear this up. The way it works is that you're going to be adding base armor or weapon on the left side, and then you're going to be adding either magical runes or materials on the right side. And once you click Forge, it's going to meld those two things into a single item. For now, the main benefit is that it's going to add all the description of the runes to the item, and will also consolidate the base information from that weapon or armor. So at least you have all the information there. It's still very limited in terms of like adding automation and making this item completely correct. Sometimes you have to manually edit some fields. It should parse correctly for like giving a better name as well. So let's create a couple weapons here and see how it works. Let's start very basic. your party wants to buy a silver weapon, so they want a silver glaive, right? How we'll do this? On the left side, we're gonna have to add a glaive. So this is how we drop here. And then on the right side, we need to drop the silver weapon. You see that there's a lot of different silver stuff, right? Like there's just the material, like a silver object. There's also silver shield, silver armor, so on and so forth. You have to drop the correct one, which is the silver weapon. It could be either the low grade silver or the high grade silver. I'm not checking for grade requirements at this point. So let's just add the low grade silver. Also, it's important because I set the level of the output item as the highest level of all the components, right? So if you use a rune that's level 20, even if it's, you know, all the other runes are level 4, this will be a level 20 item, right? So it's important to use the appropriate leveled for the bases. And of course, this will affect the total cost. So now we have silver weapon and a glaive. If we click forge, this will create a new item for us. This is the silver glaive. So what it does is that, you know, copy all the information from the glaive, but as you can see, it updated the price correctly to 490 silver, right? That's sum of 400 silver for any silver weapon. It's 2 bulk weapon, which means gonna add 8 more, plus 1 gold from the basic glaive, so 49 gold. It also had the silver damage type, so if you drag this to a PC inventory and attack and do damage with it, it's already gonna be adding the silver damage there, which should bypass resistances from creatures like werewolves and what's not. And finally, I add the description here from the original object, right? Like silver weapon, blah, blah, blah. Okay, you can also add multiple weapons here. So if, for example, you want to give silver weapons for your whole group, you can add a glaive and a short sword and a dagger, and you're going to create all the, let me show you. Like if we add like a dagger and also a mace, in this case, you're going to get a silver glaive, a silver mace, and a silver dagger, right? This doesn't work when you're trying to mix weird things, but for simple scenarios like this, it should work. All right, let's do a basic magic weapon. Let's do a magical spear. In this case, we're going to be doing, we're going to be adding a potency rune. It needs to be a weapon potency. This is a +1 weapon potency. This is as simple as we go. If we forge, now we have a +1 spear. The cost should be correct here. So 1 silver from the spear, 35 gold from the rune. Damage, and now it have 1 item bonus, right? So if you, again, if you drag and drop this to a PC sheet, it should work. It also had information about the weapon potency here, so you know the rules and how to do upgrades, so on and so forth. One more example, let's do a little bit more complex rune. So in this case, let's start with sickle. Now we want to do a more complex weapon. So let's assume that we want to do a +2 potency, right? So we're going to start with level 10 here. So at this point, this is going to be a striking weapon. We're going to be doing basic striking, not greater striking yet, because I want a 10 to be the cap level. But we're going to be adding the first level of striking. And we can add up to 2 property runes on the sickle. So let's imagine we're doing an unholy sickle that's also going to be doing full damage. So with a frost rune, right? Again, my extension is not going to check for, you know, how many property runes you can add, this sort of thing, right? Like the expectation here is for you, GM, to know what you're doing, right? And following the guidelines. To make this sickle a little bit sicker, let's add cold iron as the material for this weapon. So we're going to be adding cold iron weapon as a low grade. I think a low grade should be okay here. Well, let's just add standard grade just in case. This is not going to increase the level of our item. It's definitely going to make it more expensive. Okay, so now if we just edit up everything, here let's forge this. And now we have a +2 striking unholy cold iron frost sickle. I usually like the material to be here, but I cannot force this order for now, so sometimes you have to manually change. And very often when I'm building weapons like this for my players, what I do is that I actually don't use this name. I will add this to like the GM notes, and I'll call this like the unholy sickle of Rogatoa or something, right? You can give like a fancy name to it. It sets the level, like I mentioned. It adds all traits from all the runes, so you coalesce all of them here. It adds all the costs, so this is a 3000 GP weapon. And for damage, sometimes when you add material, the damage doesn't get good and you have to manually fix it. So in this case, it's doing 1d4 base, 1d6 cold, and 1d6 evil, right? But the cold iron is mixing things here, so you just have to go here and fix this because it's a slash and cold iron, then evil and cold. This is something that I want to fix, but this is going to be taking longer, and I love to have this on people's hands ready. Finally, the item bonus here, it's coming from the potency rune, and unholy rune has this activation power where once per day you can do bleed damage. So if there's a rune with activation frequency and effect, I also copy this to the final forged item. If multiple runes do this, it's not gonna merge those. It's just gonna do this for the last process rune, and I don't know which one it's gonna be. So it's only gonna add the information from one of the property runes here. So you still have to do some manual work. The cool thing is that all the information is here about like how unholy works, cold iron, frost, weapon potency, striking, so on and so forth. And now this can be done. Someone asked if we can add the craft DC for this particular weapon, because I have the plugin, the extension also add this craft this item button. You can quickly click here and see that this is the DC 28 to craft this, the unholy sickle, Urgatoa. Just as an example, let's show how it works for armor. Let's start with a brass plate, or we can make things a little bit more interesting. We can do a full plate. With potency as well, we're gonna add potency and resilience. So let's add some resilience, and we can add one. We can add fortification is a little bit high level for this. Maybe slick. Yeah, let's add slick as a property. Now we have 3 runes and a base weapon. Now we have a +1 resilient slick full plate, and this is a level 8 item and has the proper cost, the bulk, the item bonus. I also have a goal of adding some automation, like PC effects when you equip the item. For example, for slick, you get a +1 item bonus to acrobatics. My goal is to eventually add this to the automation of this item as well, but this is not going to be there for the first release. And the rest of information about this weapon. If there's anything that you guys discover that's not working properly, I try to do a little verification in terms of like if you try to mix things. For example, if you try to add a weird, I don't know, if you do weird things like this and try to forge it, says that it's incompatible, it doesn't work. But there might be some cases that I did consider. Feel free to add to the thread and provide your feedback, and I keep improving this thing. That's the version, the 1.3 version. I hope you guys find it useful. If you haven't bought it yet, you just go to Fantasy Grounds Forge and get it there. If you already have it, just update your client and you should get the latest version. So thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.